To subtract octal numbers. In this tutorial, we will describe how to subtract octal numbers. In the terms involved in math operations video, we will discuss the terms involved in subtraction. Since we will be subtracting octal numbers, the operands involved are minuend and subtrahend. The result would be the difference. For example, let us subtract the following. Okay, so we get ready to do a subtraction, and when we do a subtraction, we're dealing with the terms minuend, subtrahend, and difference. For this example, we have a decimal value of 36,000, which will represent the minuend, and we're going to subtract the subtrahend, which is the value 5,250. Our expected difference will be 30,750. Towards the right, we have is octal representation. For the minuend, the value 36,000, its octal representation 0, 6, 2, 0. And for the subtrahend, its value 5,250, its octal representation is 1, 2, 2, 0, 2. Before we begin the computation, let's take a look at the notes at the top left. We have the powers of 8. 8 to the 0 power is 1. 8 to the first power is 8. 8 to the second power is 64. 8 to the third power is 512. 8 to the fourth power is 4,096. And 8 to the fifth power is 32,768. And towards the top, we have the digits that are involved with the octal number system. And we only have 8 digits, and that's the values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, so let's compute. All right, so when we start the computation, we usually start with the least significant column. So in this case here, we're going to add the 0 and 2. Oh, actually, this is not addition. This is subtraction. So we're going to try to attempt to subtract 2 from 0. And if we do that, we're going to produce a negative number. So what we're going to do, we're going to borrow one digit. So we subtract 1 from 4, and that leaves 3. And what that is, we actually borrow an 8. So we're really adding the 8 and the 0 to subtract 2. So 8 subtract 2 will leave the value 6. Alright, so we go to the next significant column, and we have 3 subtract 0 will leave us a value of 3. Now we go to the next significant column towards the left. We have 2 subtract 2 is 0. And next we go to the next significant column. 6 minus 2 is 4. Now we move over to the next significant column, and once again we have a 0 attempting to subtract 1 will produce a negative number. So what we do is we're going to borrow 1 from 1, that leaves 0. And we borrowed an 8 when we did that because we're dealing with the octal number system. And so we add 8 and 0, that produce 8. And 8 subtract 1 is 7. And this is the octal difference that we're looking for. So what we're going to show is that this value 74036 is indeed the value 30,750 in decimal. So before we do that, let's show the positions of digits. So we know 6 is in the 0th position, 3 is in the first position, 0 is in the second position, 4 is in the 3rd position, and 7 is in the 4th position. Okay, so let's compute. Let's see, we have 7 times 8 to the 4th power, because we said that 7 is in the 4th position. Then we have 4 times 8 to the 3rd power, plus we have 0 times 8 to the 2nd power, plus we have 3 times 8 to the 1st power, and finally we have 6 times 8, to the 0th power. Let's break it down further. So we say 8 to the 4th power up here is 4096. And now we have 4 times 8 to the 3rd power, and we say 8 to the 3rd power is 512. And now we have 0 times 8 to the 2nd power, which is 64. And then we have 3 times 8 to the 1st power, which is 8. And then we have 6 times 8 to the 0th power, which is 1. And so this gives us a computation. Let's see, 7 times 4096. That's a value of 28,672. Plus we said 4 times 512 gives us a value of 2,048. Plus we have 0 times 64 is 0. Plus we have 3 times 8 is 24. Plus we have a value of 6 times 1 is 6. And the final computation, 28,672 plus 2,048 plus 24 plus 6. And the final computation is 30,750. And this is what we wanted to show. Next, let us perform another octal subtraction. This time we will subtract numbers with a decimal point. Alright, so we got another subtraction. This time we deal with the minuend, subtrahend, and of course a difference. For this example, the minuend has a value of 46,025.50. In the subtrahend, its value is 5,275.25. And our expected difference will be 40,750.25. Towards the right, we have the octal representation for the value 46,025.50. Its octal representation is 131711.4. For the value 5,275.25, its octal representation is 1223.2. And before we do this computation, in the previous slide we already talked about the powers of 8, but there's one particular one we want to add. It would be this one here. 8 to the minus 1 power has a value of 0.125. This will also come in handy when we do this computation. So let's compute. Alright, so this case here, we want to line up the decimal point. So that goes here. And we're going to look at that least significant column. We're going to subtract 2 from 4. That leaves us a value of 2. Now we go towards the next significant column towards the left. And we can see that we're trying to subtract 3 from 1. And of course that's going to produce a negative number. So let's borrow from the 1 to the next significant column. That gives us an 8 that is borrowed. So we add up the 8 and the 1. That produces the value 9. And 9 subtract 3 is 6. So this leaves 0 here. And so once again we try to subtract 3 from 0. It's going to produce a negative number. So what we do, we borrow 1 from 7. That leaves 6 right here. And then we carried or borrowed an 8. And so we have 8 and 0 subtract 3 will produce the value 5. And go to the next significant column. We have 6 subtract 2 leaves a 4. And now we go to the next significant column. We have 1 attempting to subtract 2. That would produce a negative number, and that's what we do not want, a negative number. So what we want to do is borrow. So we borrow 1 from 3. That leaves 2 here, and that carries over an 8. And so we're adding these two, 8 and 1, that produce 9. And 9 subtract 2 is 7. And we have 2 subtract 1 is 1. And of course 1 subtract 0 is 1. And this is the octal difference that we're looking for. So now we want to show that this value 117,456.2 is the value 40,750.25 in decimal. So once again we want to show the positions of the digits. 6 is in the 0th position. 5 is in the first position. 4 is in the second position. 7 is in the third position. 1 is in the fourth. And the final one is in the fifth position. And because the 2 is to the right of the decimal place, or decimal point, it's in the -1 position. So let's compute. So we want to show that the value 117,456.2 is the value 40,750.25. All right, so we have 1 times 8 to the 5th power, plus we have 1 times 8 to the 4th power, plus we have 7 times 8 to the 3rd power, plus we have 4 times 8 to the 2nd power, plus we have 5 times 8 to the 1st power, plus we have 6 times 8 to the 0th power, and plus we have 2 times 8 to the -1 power. So let's break it down further. So we have 1 times, now we said 8 to the 5th power is 32,768. So that goes here. And then we said 1 times 8 to the 4th power. And 8 to the 4th power is 4,096. And now we have 7 times 8 to the 3rd power, which we said 8 to the 3rd power is 512. And next we have 4 times 8 to the 2nd power, which is 4 times 64. And then we have 5 times 8 to the first power, which is the value 8. And then we have 6 times 8 to the 0th power, which is the value 1. 6 times 1. And then we have 2 times 8 to the minus 1 power, and we indicated up to the top left that 8 to the minus 1 power is 0.125. All right, let's continue. So this 1 times 32,768 is 32,768. Then we have 1 times 4,096 is 4,096. And we have 7 times 512 is the value 3,584. Then we have 4 times 64 is a value 256. Then we have 5 times 8 is 40. Then we have the value 6 times 1 is 6. And then 2 times 0.125 is the value 0.25. So let's add it up. So we have 32,768 plus 4,096 plus 3,584 plus 256 plus 40 plus 6 and plus 0.25. And it comes out to be 40,750.25. And this is what we wanted to show. This puts us in a position for my next tutorial where we describe the multiplication of octal numbers. I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you find this tutorial to be helpful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also feel free to join us at the computing sector. There will be more videos and tutorials coming soon. Thanks.